And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willapa Bay.
So, we have made it to the top of the 9 o'clock hour, which is very exciting. Welcome. Moe and I pulled the card, and wouldn't you know it? Because Moe is starting tonight, the 9 o'clock hour. We pulled, my friends, the mermaid. So the image of the mermaid here is joyous and radiant. There is a rolling green sea, a red sky with a golden sun, and a blue mermaid body arcing over the sun. Enjoy, the hair is long and hanging down, and the lines of radiance come not from the sun, but from the mermaid themselves, which sounds a lot like someone else that I know. So allow me to read what the mermaid card says. It says, "The siren song is calling to you. It's time to call your magic back from the depths. You know that you inhabit both the waking world and the watery subconscious. This is a good time to pay attention to your dreams." Let's take that in for a second. So I'm going to read something, and then I'm going to say something. So very formally, Moe Bowstern is the editor since 1996 of Extra Tough, a zine that chronicles the experiences and adventures of commercial fisher folk in Alaska and beyond. Moe has worked on fishing boats since 1986 when, as a miserable 18-year-old boat cook, she once inadvertently threatened the lives of the crew by serving pasta tossed with shards of glass. She has fished salmon, halibut, herring, tanner crab caught in Alaska, shad on the Hudson River, shrimp in Miami, and mackerel, crab, and lobster in the Moray Firth of Scotland. Moe has performed annually at the Astoria, Oregon FisherPoets Gathering since it began in 1998. And most recently, she wrote for the oral history podcast It Did Happen Here, which is about chasing racist skinheads out of the Portland music scene in the late 80s and 90s. The book came out last year, and Moe will be touring in the Southeast U.S. later this spring. And on a more personal note, Moe Bowstern is the reason I am at FisherPoets. She's the first person to encourage me to write about these experiences, and I know I am not alone in that. She's done a tremendous amount welcoming in artists and performers, making this community be what it is, and holding that community together. So, I love her very much. And I know that you do too. Let us please welcome. So you may know my handle is Queen of Pirates, and I think of Moe as the Queen of Fisher Poets. So please, let's give her a big round of applause.
Thanks, Lara. Hi. Thank you so much. We were requested, I don't know what's going on with that. Whoa. We were requested to write a poem. I've been a prose writer at FisherPoets for most of the time, but this is called Mandatory Poem. I helped write a book. Maybe you want to take a look. I wrote down what I knowed. Find it with that QR code. Going on tour in the South, I'll be talking with my mouth about this planet in all weather. All we have is us together. So, Lara and I are going to host a Fisher Poets in Portland, Monday, tomorrow, day after tomorrow. It is all a dream. And you'll get to see a lot of your favorites there if you come, and there's little flyers. There will be little flyers at Turn, which is on 8th and Williams in Northeast Portland, or 8th and Killingsworth and Williams in Northeast Portland. It's really nice to be here. I don't know about you all, but I had a lot of anxiety for the last 4 years. For real, though, like a lot. We're all like, it's just been an intense time. And I feel so lucky that I get to come and be here with you all. And I was so scared before I came, because I knew I wanted to talk about some things, and I didn't want to lose your love and esteem. And I want to just remind everyone that, not that I'm presumed to be speaking the truth, but when someone speaks a truth and you get angry with them, it's good to remember that maybe you're benefiting from the lie. I did read that on an Instagram meme today, and I was like, oh, I'm going to use that. But it's good, right? And I do have a Scorpio moon, which means the Scorpio's job is to address the taboos of the culture. And in this culture, it's frequently sex and death and money. But the job of the Scorpio is to dig down deep into the hidden places in the deep water and bring up that which needs healing and show it to everyone. And that the sting of the Scorpio is often the healing that we need. So I'm just going to tell you those things before I read my thing. But also when we were in the gear shack, setting up all of our merch and stuff, after having like anxiety and concern and wondering how it would all be, and there was a part of my brain that was like, it'll be great, it's always great. We'll all come together and the edges will soften and we'll all be in the big happy blob of Fisher poetry. But we were brittle when I looked at people at the gear shack. Like, people were like, how are you? And so I just hope for you all, like, ease, wellness, health. Remind yourself, like, you're working so hard all the time. If you're fishing, if you're part of the fishing community, you have no idea how to ask for help until you become incapacitated. And then sometimes it seems better to ask before that happens, but not everybody was raised by a Marine, so it's just what happens. It's just like... And so we have an opportunity. We talk a lot about climate collapse, which is happening, and the shifting sands we all stand on. But it's an opportunity to change, to really change. In Kodiak, we deckhands were well acquainted with the dope-smoking, friendly, long-haired Israeli deckhand who worked on the 58-foot limit seiner, the Sumner Strait. When migrants make money, we talk about it back home, where no one can see the grimy sweatpants we wear every day or the long hours. All they see is a person, flush with muscles, cash, and a soul full of diesel and beauty. Our friends back home think, maybe if I do that, I also will be ripped and rich. At 18, Israel's young men enter compulsory service in the Israeli Defense Force for 32 months. Young women serve 24. After 2 or more years of military rigidity, many former soldiers then spend some months traveling through South America. This was a migration pattern in the late 90s. Once they run through all their pay, they move north to make the big bucks in the commercial fisheries of Alaska, then return home to attend university, earn degrees, and enter professions. My last salmon season in Kodiak, 1998. There were over a dozen Israelis walking the docks at the tipping point in the season when the college kids go home and skippers hire walk-on greenhorns for the last month of work. When we asked, "Where are you from?" more often than not, they said, "California." They all looked healthy, spoke English and Spanish in addition to Hebrew, claimed to be accustomed to hard work and discipline, excellent deckhand specimens. They were quickly absorbed into the fleet, which immediately began to boil with stories about obnoxious and violent Israeli deckhands. Nothing like the chill Sumner Strait dude we'd all known for so long. Craig's guys started fights with everyone on the boat. Barry ended up firing his guy for beating up the skiff man. No one could tell them anything. On my boat, once the college guy left, we got Lara. She was probably 22, short, dark eyes, dark auburn hair, strong, beautiful accent. I was the only one who tried to say her name in Hebrew. Everyone else Americanized it, Yara. But no one was ever good enough for her. Yara was argumentative, belligerent, and sullen, a know-it-all. Ask her to do anything, get a speech. I was a lieutenant in the IDF. I was like, yeah, but we're deckhands. We just do everything. She had a boyfriend who worked on another boat. He was the only thing she liked to talk about. Gidon could do that. Gidon taught me that. Gidon does that better. Or my favorite, Gidon has 3 passports. US, France, Israel. I was 30 years old with 9 salmon seasons behind me. It was late August, and I was in the last 3 or 4 weeks of a fishing stint that started in March, prepping for the April cod season. I was not old enough to know how to talk to such an arrogant, furious, self-righteous person. I was not old enough to see her immaturity and her terror. She was a short-timer, so I didn't bother. That time of year, we usually traded our seine in for a shallower fall net, good for catching silvers. On net shuffling day, we were out at the skipper's compound. I was stacking net on the boom truck. Ya'ara was on the ground, tidying the web. The seine block towered over her, far higher than on board the boat. You might want to stand back a little. You don't want to get hit with one of those rings. As the skiff man, I felt an obligation to keep her safe, even though I knew what was coming. "I know what I'm doing," she retorted, keeping her head down, eyes on the pile. It was like a movie. How the minute she snapped at me, a brass ring missed her by inches. Then she yelled at me for not telling her in time. August in Kodiak is hard. Our other crewmates were the skipper and his wife, both longtime fishing people whose summer crew tolerance was long expired. They remained in the top house as much as possible while I hung out with the baby grouch. One slow, sunny day when we were anchored up inside Ijut Bay, I took my violin out to the skiff to work out my frustrations. For about an hour, I played klezmer songs, old-time tunes, and a Romanian piece that was just beyond my ability. I like the way it feels to have a box of wood vibrating against my heart, pulling the music out of my whole body. I've never been much of a public violinist, more like a person with a best friend that I can talk to when things are really bad and there's nowhere else to turn. Personal, like an alternate me that I can bring to potlucks, but I don't have to feed. I came inside and went to stow my fiddle in my bunk. Ya'ara stood in the galley, staring at me. Her anguished expression made me pause. What now, I thought, waiting for the inevitable complaint about how I'd inconvenienced her, or maybe Gidon was a member of the Israel-France-U.S. Philharmonic Orchestra. But instead, she said, with her voice halting, "If I could do what you do, play like that, I would do nothing else. Why are you not playing? Why are you deckhand?" It looked like she had been crying. Completely taken aback, I said something like, "Oh, I'm not good enough. It's just for me." She shook her head, furious again. Even her admiration was dismissive and judgmental. That's when I started to see it. The fear and the self-loathing of the soldier. Who twisted her? The Israeli news media site Haaretz reports a third of women soldiers reporting sexual harassment, and of those who talked about it officially, almost half said their complaints were poorly handled. Lara never got any better as a deckhand, never got any manners. Across the fleet, gossip on the out-of-town ex-IDF greenhorns continued to report fistfights, weekends in jail, endless surliness, quitting, universal disdain. People in Kodiak began to complain about the Jewish people who were having such a negative impact on the fleet. I ran around trying to do damage control, to explain the terms were not interchangeable. These are Israelis who are also Jewish, maybe. People shook their heads. There's little time for global nuance in the salmon fleet at the end of the summer, especially in a town for whom Jewish people meant a former fur trapper with a Bronx accent who ran the monk's habit and the woman many considered to be hands down the best at catching herring island-wide. They were just Mary and Ed. Everyone knew them. I tried to say, well, what if people randomly called you a crabber because you are a fisherman? You know you fish salmon, but a drylander doesn't differentiate. But I fish subsistence crab. I tried another tack. Okay, you belong to the religion of fishing, but you live in the nation of salmon. Do you understand now? People in Kodiak are obtuse. I'm not religious. I eventually gave up and finished out my season. I had my own problems, and trying to untangle international relations between the town and the shifting migrant population was far beyond my skill set. But I think about Ya'ara when things flare up in the occupied nation of Palestine. For the second Intifada, in 2000 to 2005, in 2014, in 2021, this past October, and for the last 141 days. She'd be about 48 now, 8 years beyond reservist status, but I wonder if she got called up for any of those other times. I wonder if she became a doctor, worked in a hospital. I wonder if she went to France with Guidon. I wonder what she thinks when she looks out at the sea, and if she's ever had to fire at Palestinians pulling in their nets, if their skiffs remind her of me playing music, the only time she showed me her heart. Ceasefire now. Thank you.
Fire burns bright in the farmhouse fireplace. Closing the logbook, you start to sing. Fishing boats are iced in, snow outside calls me. It's a red late afternoon, I hear a church bell ring.
Thank you for joining us here to talk about FisherPoets Gathering. Can you tell me your name, please?
I'm Charlie Becker.
Charlie, I am so happy to meet you. Are you an Astoria local, or did you come from?
I'm a dual citizen. I'm from Portland and Astoria.
So you are well qualified to come to the Astoria FisherPoets Gathering.
I'm an old sailor, so that doesn't hurt. Oh. I'm an old Navy sailor.
Perfect.
And I will say, it's such a delight. The performances here, more than that, the seminar is taught by these real pros, who are real pros at their literal thing, their poetry, and the way they present. So there's a great deal for all of us to learn, I think, going through this. I'm also a bit of a mandolin player myself, so I kind of fade in with this sort of thing. It's very artsy too. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And I've heard the workshops are really, really good as well. So I'm glad you're
Very good on doing your writing. These guys on the water, evidently they occupy themselves doing their writing. They're really remarkably creative. I'm sure you must observe the same thing. Yeah.
Indeed. Charlie, how many years have you been doing this?
I'm about 4 years into this one, okay? And it is kind of new to me, but about 4 years. But I fit right in, and well, for the most part. But there's really a community of people on the water who come here, and I do feel that most of us don't know what it's like to be on that water out there. So here it is brought for us. We get a sense of it, and I appreciate it. I appreciate that.
Well, I know it's only Friday. We haven't had the Saturday performances yet, but what's been your favorite part so far?
I think some of the workshops I attended yesterday, which involved your writing of your content and the telling of your story, because we do have stories, and so much of this really is about stories, and it has broad application for stories of all sorts. And so they teach you how to prompt yourself, how you might get enthusiastic, how to present, and really how to find your voice. I mean, really, isn't that what it is? Most of us want to find our voice in what we do.
You know what? We are so lucky we got to talk to you today. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you. Likewise.
Appreciate it.